Have you ever made a decision smelled so seemingly harmless that it didn't even register as a turning point in your life until it was too late? One simple yes. That's all it took. Tonight's story isn't just about regret. It's about how one bad choice opened the door to something ancient, something hungry, and something that never, ever lets go. So dim the lights, and whatever you do, think twice before saying yes. It started with a text, as these things often do, harmless in its appearance, but deadly in its consequence you up. From a guy named Austin I had known back in college, someone I'd partied with once or twice, but never really talked to again until that moment when my insomnia and loneliness collided in the worst way imaginable. And I, against all sense and instinct, replied, "Yeah, what's up?" which spiraled into a series of rapid messages that led to him inviting me to a secluded house party deep in the backwoods of Oregon. A place I'd never been and couldn't even find on Google Maps, yet something about his excitement and the way he described our tender ground scene. Insane vibes. People from everywhere sparked that stupid, reckless part of me that was desperate for a break from my dull routine. So I said yes, and that's when everything started to go wrong, because no sooner had I packed a bag, told my roommate I'd be back Sunday, and driven 3 hours into the ever-thickening woods with spotty signal and increasingly questionable directions. Did I realize I hadn't asked the most basic questions, like who would be there, or how long we'd be gone, or why the location looked more like an abandoned summer camp than a party spot. But when I arrived, there were cars lined along the gravel road, music thumping distantly from somewhere inside, lights flickering unnaturally through the trees, and Austin was there at the gate, grinning wide like he'd been waiting for me his whole life. But there was something off in his eyes. Too dilated, too excited, and when I asked what was in the drinks, he just laughed and said, "Just be cool, it's all natural." And again, I made the decision to say yes, to trust that maybe this was what I needed, a night to blow off steam. But what I walked into was not a party. Not really. It was more like a ritual, though no one said that out loud. They just danced and drank and smoked things that smelled like wet dirt and metal. And the air buzzed with an energy that made the hair on my arms stand on end, like something old and unseen was watching us from the forest beyond. And around 1 a.m., they lit this massive bonfire and started chanting in a language that didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard, not Latin or Sanskrit or anything remotely human. And Austin, his shirt off and chest marked with symbols that looked carved, not drawn, held my hand and whispered, "Don't run. No matter what happens, okay?" And that's when I knew I'd walked into something ancient and wrong. Because the fire turned blue and then black, swallowing light instead of casting it. And out of the trees came peepliff. You could call them that'll eyeless things with mouths where their stomachs should be, and the crowd didn't scream, they bowed. Except for one girl who did scream, just once, before one of the things snatched her and folded her in half like paper and dragged her into the trees, while the music never stopped, never changed. And when I tried to run, I realized my feet wouldn't move. Not because I was scared, though, I was beyond terrify, but because the ground had softened beneath me, like it was trying to pull me down, roots coiling around my ankles, like fingers. And Austin just kept smiling, saying, "You said yes, remember?" Like that somehow meant I had no way out. And the next thing I remember is waking up inside a room I didn't recognize. Walls made of some kind of living bark, pulsating with a heartbeat I could feel in my own chest. And there were others there, silent, wide-eyed people, who looked like they'd been there for days, weeks, maybe longer. And when I asked where we were, a woman who couldn't stop shaking said, "This is the offering Husu said yes to." And I realized that the decision I thought was just a casual night out had been something else entirely. A bargain, a doorway, a contract with no exit clause. And every night at the same time, the walls would open and something would come in and take someone away, dragging them screaming into the dark. And the rest of us had to sit still, not cry, not speak, because any sound would draw its attention. And the worst part was, knowing that everyone outside his world I came from had no idea any of this was happening. Like we'd slipped through a crack in the world and into some place not meant for human eyes. And each day the room grew smaller, the ceiling lower, the air thicker, until breathing became an act of will, and food came in the form of strange berries that grew from the walls themselves, and water that dripped from the ceiling like condensation from some massive breathing organism above us. And time stopped making sense, days bleeding into each other until I forgot my own last name. And that's when I heard Austin's voice again, through the walls, whispering like a lover, "You said yes. And that means you're part of it now." And I realized he wasn't a victim of this. Plessy was a recruiter. Someone who had already given himself over, and now fed the cycle by finding more of us. More desperate, lonely people who didn't ask enough questions before saying yes. And as the days passed, I noticed changes in my body, my skin turning pale and veiny, my teeth sharper, my eyes too sensitive, too lightened. I knew I was becoming something else, something like them. And when the woman who first warned me finally got taken, I didn't cry or scream, or even move. I just watched, numb, because part of me was already gone. And then one night the wall split open in front of me, and instead of something coming in, it showed me a way out, but only if I promised to bring someone back in my place. And I wish I could say I refused, that I held on to my humanity and fought to escape, but I didn't. He agreed. I said yes, because I wanted out more than anything in the world. And the next thing I knew, I was back in my apartment, 3 months later. Weak and scarred, and changed but free, or so I thought, because now I can't sleep, can't eat anything but raw meat, and every time I close my eyes, I see their faces, hear their whispers, and the only way to make it stop is to find someone else. Someone lonely, someone naive, someone who will say yes just like I died. I hate myself for what I've become, but the truth is, once you say yes to the darkness, it never lets you go. It just waits for you to serve it. If this story sent chills down your spine, Imogene, what's still out there, waiting for another bad decision? If you've ever had a moment where everything changed after one simple yes, share it in the comments. Bellowim always listening. Don't forget to like the video if you made it through the nightmare. Subscribe for more true horror that finds you when you least expect it, and hit that bell icon because the next story might just be about you.